Hello, everyone. This month on our God's Girls Facebook page, we looked at the Proverbs 31 woman, found in the 31st chapter of Proverbs, verses 10 through 31. This is a look at the scripture writing plan that was posted, and it was a fairly short one compared to the other ones that we did. It was only 25 days. So hopefully you've had a chance to go through most, if not all of them. And we can see, or we've heard throughout most of our lives, that probably this section in verses 10 through 31 is probably the most quoted section of the book of Proverbs. Proverbs 31 verses 10 through 31. So this is a look at some of the daily scripture writings, different words and phrases that we looked at throughout the 25 days. And I introduced a new word study plan, a tool for you to use. And the first step was to look at the word or phrase for that day, define it with a modern dictionary. That was step 2. And then discover how the Bible uses that word or phrase, using a concordance or a Bible dictionary. Then summarize what you learned in steps 2 and 3. And step 5 was to apply the word study and its impact on your relationship with God, your life, your relationships with others, those close to you, and the church, your local church community. So we can see that the Proverbs 31 woman is more than just a good wife. She had her own garden. She made her own clothes for herself and her family. She owned and ran her own business, so she was an entrepreneur. She was a wonderful homemaker. Her husband praised her. Her children adored her. She was intelligent. She took care of the physical needs of her family, and she helped others. She spoke with wisdom. She was in shape physically, emotionally, and spiritually. So she was a tough cookie, and we can aspire as women to be like this Proverbs 31 woman. So what should we learn from this virtuous woman that we find in chapter 31 of Proverbs? So as we look at the book of Proverbs, we can see that it's based on a metaphor. It's packed with word pictures of universal truths. Throughout the book of Proverbs, wisdom is portrayed as a woman. As early as Proverbs 1 verse 20, wisdom is compared to a woman who shouts in the street, chastising fools and scoffers. And then in chapter 31, it provides a detailed metaphor of the feminine wisdom in the context of family and community. As I said earlier, verses 10 through 31 is probably the most quoted section. Proverbs 31 is a chiastic poem, that is, a poem that cycles through repeated thoughts in a particular order. The chapter speaks of the worth of a good wife to her husband, the manual labor that she does, her fulfillment of responsibilities to those who need her, her ability to provide for her family, and her wisdom in caring for herself so she can share her strength with others. These ideas are presented in kind of a circular pattern throughout the section. She is a woman, we learn, who fears the Lord. As I said, she is a personification of wisdom, and like wisdom, she is more valuable than rubies. So let's take a look at the sections in Proverbs 31. So in the first section, in verses 10 through 12, we see that she is a good, supportive, trusting wife, and she is a blessing to her husband. She is a woman who partners with her husband, who is reliable and looks out for his interests. She gives him security that's greatly lacking in the world. She is worth more than a substantial paycheck. To bring the metaphor in, wisdom provides the same benefits. It is worth more than any amount of money. You can always trust it to make the right decisions, and it provides blessings for those who have it. In the next section, verses 13, 19, and 27, we're going to look at, we see that the wife of Proverbs 31 is not afraid of work. She gets up in the mornings early and she gets things done. In the time of Solomon, this involved making fabric, sewing clothes. But as we look at verse 27, we see how this applies to us today. In taking care of our responsibilities, it is a characteristic of wisdom. The next section we're going to look at, we see another characteristic of wisdom, which is the grace to help others. The Proverbs 31 wife ensures that those under her care receive what they need for clothing, food, and protection. She is able to serve others out of the abundance of her work and the leaning of her heart. She has so internalized her role as a provider that it extends past her immediate responsibilities and into her community. This next section that we're going to look at, we see that she is beyond savvy. She's educated about the world and the world of business. She's an entrepreneur. She knows how to use her skills to provide for her family, and she's not afraid to interact with that world, whether it be as a merchant or a buyer. She knows how to use her strengths to her best advantage, and she fully realizes how valuable her efforts are. In this section, verses 17, 22, 25, and 26, the Proverbs 31 woman not only knows her worth, she knows her responsibilities to herself. She would not be able to provide for others if she neglected her own needs, both physical and spiritual. She makes sure her appearance reflects her position as an influence in the community. And we all have that influence today. Her greatest strength is her wisdom, her accurate judgment about the world, and her influence in it. She is quick to share the wisdom she has gained to encourage others to reach their full potential. This last section that we're going to look at, verses 23, 28, 29, 30, and 31, we see that she knows that she has a tremendous influence on her husband's ministry, and that ministry is in the home, with our friends, at work, and as well as at church. But she also can integrate her life, both domestic and professional, with her own ministry in such a way that her husband has the freedom to serve. In fact, her reputation has so established that it bleeds off onto him. The Proverbs 31 wife is a fierce provider and protector for those she cares about. She is wise to the ways of the world, but lives by the wisdom of God. As in the rest of the Proverbs, these specific examples provide a metaphor for a larger truth. How any individual woman exemplifies these characteristics will depend on her situation, gifts, and abilities. The key is in verse 30, just as in the beginning of Proverbs in chapter 1, verse 7. But a woman who fears the Lord, she shall be praised. Thank you, and I hope you've enjoyed our look at the Proverbs 31 women in these last 25 days.